بسم الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Inshallah, we're going to continue with this explanation or this summary of the ahadith in Jawamع الأخبار, a compilation of ahadith which are comprehensive in their meaning and short in their wording. And as I mentioned in the previous lessons, the first lesson and the second lesson, when we look at this collection of 99 hadith that the Allama Shaykh Abdul Rahman As-Sa'di compiled, you see that he compiled them in an order which is beneficial for the student of knowledge. So we've looked at ahadith that pertain to Tawheed and Aqidah, we've looked at ahadith that pertain to fiqh like as-salat and Sawm and Zakat. And now when we get to hadith number 37, he starts to look and explain ahadith which are jami', comprehensive in mu'amalat. Mu'amalat being transactions, buying and selling, and things related to business. So the first hadith that we look at here, which is hadith number 37 in the book, says, عن حكيم بن حزام رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم البيعان بالخيار ما لم يتفرقا فإن صدقا وبينا بورك لهما في بيعهما وإن كذبا وكتما محقت بركة بيعهما متفق عليه. This hadith, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in this hadith that the two parties involved in a transaction have the option to proceed or to cancel the transaction so long as they have not separated from each other. And if they are truthful and transparent in their dealings, their transaction will be blessed. But if they lie and conceal the facts, then the blessing of their transaction will be wiped out. This hadith is the basis for the option, i.e. that you have when you buy something and you change your mind and you want a refund, right? You want a refund. And we all know that, for example, when you purchase something, right, you might sometimes regret the purchase. It may no longer be suitable, or you regret buying that thing. So in Islam, as so long as the two parties haven't parted ways physically, right, meaning that they haven't got up and left the contract setting, then they have the option to change their mind and to cancel the contract. Both parties have that option. Al-bayya'an bil-khiyar ma lam yatafarraqa, so long as they haven't separated. Meaning, you go in a shop, you buy a thobe, right? You're still in the shop, still in front of the cashier, you've given him the money, he's giving you the thobe. At the moment you think, I don't really want that thobe. And you say to him, I changed my mind. He has no choice, even if he doesn't set it as a condition, but to give you back your money and you give him back the thobe or the item that you purchased. That's what it means. Al-bayya'an bil-khiyar ma lam yatafarraqa. So long as they have not departed, you have the option to cancel. But if they've separated, meaning that he's now gone out the building, gone to another shop, sees a better price, and now comes back and says, do you know what, I want a refund. I don't want the thobe anymore. What's the seller going to say? Nope. You bought the thobe, it's yours. You left the building. Irrespective that you found it cheaper or not, that has nothing to do with me. You were happy when you were in the building that you bought it from me. The fact that you got it cheaper you want to get it cheaper next door, buy a second thobe. I don't have to give you back your money. I can do if I want to, but I'm not bound to. Alright, this is the issue. It's not lazim. It's lazim as long as you haven't separated. I have no choice, but once you've separated, it's not lazim. So this shows the option to cancel by either side, the seller as well as the buyer. It also shows another important benefit as it pertains to business, that when you're doing business with somebody, you have to be truthful and you have to be transparent. You have to be truthful and you have to be transparent. If there's a defect with what you are selling, You have to say there's a defect, right? You can't hide it. Because if you do that, then what's going to happen? When the person finds out, he's going to be annoyed, he's going to want to have a refund, it brings about disunity and discord, isn't it? So Islam stops that through different laws and rulings, and this is one of them. Being truthful and transparent in your transactions brings about blessings in your transactions. Where if you do the opposite, you hide and you distort, for example, you hide, then the blessing of your business is gone, right? The blessing of your business is going to be gone. So both parties have to be honest and have to be transparent when it comes to. So what you won't find in Islam is this issue of deceit, right? So that you can make a profit. Or lying, embellishing the product, making out it's better than it really is, so the person can buy it, right? You're allowed to market it, you're allowed to describe it, but you're not allowed to lie in your description or in your marketing of that product that you're selling. Or even of the service you're offering. You can apply it to services as well, right? Some people on their CV, they'll lie or exaggerate their qualifications or their services, the abilities that they have, their skills, okay? So the person employs them based upon what's mentioned on the CV, without an interview, for example. If they find out at a later date that that's a lie, it's dishonest, there's deceit, then what's going to happen? They're going to fire the person, right? Or they're going to want to fire them. It may be difficult in some countries because of employment law, but they're going to want to fire the person. So overall, this hadith, it underscores the importance of ethical conduct in business transactions. And it serves as a reminder that honesty and transparency are essential values in Islam. Not just in our ibadah, but also in our mu'amalat with other people. Okay, and this is why people enter Islam. This is what has an impact on people. When they see, for example, that a Muslim has integrity, he has honesty, he's truthful, right? It makes people realize that even if they themselves do not become Muslim, they can't help but acknowledge the muhasin of al-Islam, the beauty of Islam, the benefits of Islam, which you find that a lot, right? You see it in, for example, sports commentators recently, in certain professions, when they speak it, they look at Muslim footballers, or they look at, for example, and they see that they don't drink alcohol, or they look at, for example, they see that they make sajda to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they look at this person's principled, right? And they respect it. And it has an impact across all of the fans that are watching them play football. For example, Mo Salah is one known as a Liverpool player. Islamophobia, they said, went down after he started playing for Liverpool in amongst fans. Then you look at, for example, the fighters like the famous ones like Khabib and stuff like that, and the guy that's in charge of the UFC, right? He says, you have to respect the Muslim fighters because they don't party, they don't drink, they don't do this, and they're honest, they're truthful, they respect that. He says he's coming out with those statements. Joe Rogan, if you know him, he has a podcast, right? He's saying all these statements, even though he's not a Muslim himself, but he's giving dawah to Islam, right? He's not a Muslim, but he's telling people how good Islam is. And in some ways, he's telling people how good Islam is better than how some Muslims will tell people how good Islam is, because sometimes Muslims that have a inferiority complex, they feel like they have to imitate or to reflect the values of the society they're in when everyone does what Romans do, as opposed to maintain and hold on to their own values because they think that that's the way they're going to be accepted. When if you look at, for example, the impact that these sports stars have had, then whether what they're doing or not, they still have a positive impact because you find non-Muslims are giving dawah to Islam because of their actions and they respect them. And that's based upon what? Based upon integrity, based upon honesty, based upon being sincere to yourself and stuff like this, to your religion. Hadith number 38, عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال نهى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن بيع الحصاة وعن بيع الغرر رواه مسلم. This hadith, again, it looks at a type of transaction which is impermissible. The Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم forbade نهى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن بيع الحصاة وعن بيع الغرر. There's two types of transactions. بيع الحصاة, which is a type of, can read the translation, what does it come up with? How do they translate it?
The authority of Abu Hurairah said the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam prohibited transaction of al-hasa and forms of trust, or from transactions of ambiguity.
Okay, al-gharar means there's ambiguity or uncertainty in the transaction. Bay al-hasat is a type of transaction which is based upon uncertainty and ignorance, i.e., you take a hasat is a stone, a pebble. So you say, for example, or the person says, okay, take a stone and throw it. Whatever it lands on is yours for this much money. Do you know where the stone's going to land? You don't know, right? There's a lot of products in front of you, right? And what basically that shows is any business transaction where there's a level of, where there's uncertainty, large uncertainty, or there's jahala, which is ignorance of what it is that you're purchasing, those transactions are forbidden in Islam. So, for example, you go to the fun fair or the mahrajan or whatever, right? And there's these types of games where you pay a certain amount of money, which is known, whatever it is, 5 dinar, right? And you're given 3 shots or 3 chances to hit something. That's impermissible. Why? Because you may get something, you may get nothing. And what it is that you're going to get, you don't know what you're going to get. Maybe the thing that you get is only worth 1 dinar, or the thing that you get is worth 5 dinar, or the thing you get is going to be worth 3 dinar, but you have no idea. So there's jahala. So because of that transaction's impermissible, right? Similar one you have, it's not bay al-hisab, but it's similar. Those machines where you put money in and it goes down and you grab a toy, right? So you put money in, you know how much you're paying. It might not be a lot of money, right? A dinar, 2 dinar, 3 dinar, whatever it costs. But you're putting money in and if you land on something, you get it, right? But what are you going to land on? Are you going to land on the AirPods or are you going to land on the soft toy? Everyone wants to get the AirPods, but as everyone knows, that hand grabber thing, it doesn't do well when it comes to boxes. It does better when it comes to soft toys because you can grab it easily. But a box, it slips through very easily, right? So you might get a soft toy worth half the money that you've put in, or you may get nothing either. So those type of transactions are impermissible. For a transaction to be permissible, there has to be a number of conditions or pillars. One of them is the money that you're paying has to be known. The thing that you're buying has to also be known, either because you've seen it, you've pointed to it, or you've described it in a manner which adequately describes what it is. Okay? Also, the person that's selling it has to be happy to sell it. He shouldn't be under duress. And the person that's buying it also should be happy. I.e., there's rida. They have to both be happy with what they're doing at the time. Okay? So these are some of the pillars. You find that these types of contracts where there's jahala, which is ignorance of what you're purchasing, or there's gharar, which is uncertainty, which is excessive, and there's excessive uncertainty or risk. This goes against the principles which were mentioned before of fairness and honesty and truthfulness. So you find that that's something which is impermissible. For a transaction to be valid, it has to be, there can't be any gharar, there can't be any. And this is the reason why the scholars say, for example, that insurance, generally speaking, is impermissible unless it's forced on you, right? So you won't find Muslims getting life insurance, you won't find Muslims getting content insurance for their house, right? Why? Because there's a level of gharar, which is their uncertainty. What's the uncertainty? That you're going to get any money back from the money that you've given. There's no service back. There's only a service if something happens. I.e., if you're burgled, then you get back money. If you're not burgled, then you can't claim back money. That money just goes. Goes to who? To a business. For what purpose? For safeguarding risk. So that you can live a life risk-free, basically. In any case, insurance is considered a contract of gharar, right? That's what makes it impermissible. The main things that are permissible in contracts, as it pertains to the actual contract itself, is going to be jahala and gharar. Those are going to be the 2 reasons, and the third one is going to be riba, right? These 3 things make a contract impermissible. Can it be fixed? Sometimes yes, sometimes not. Remove the riba, the contract stays valid, for example. All right? It's only the riba which is impermissible in the transaction. As for the transaction itself, then it may not be. It can be fixed. So these are the three things. Then there are a number of things which are impermissible as it pertains to the product themselves. It's not allowed to buy or to sell things which are haram, for example. Right? So there's certain things which are impermissible as it pertains to the product. This impermissibility goes back to a hikmah and a wisdom, which is that it brings about harm to people. I.e., both spending money without getting anything in return is harm, right? Also, the dispute and the disagreement that happens through jahala is also harmful, brings about disunity and the like. The next hadith, hadith number 39, it says, "An Amr ibn Auf al-Muzani, radiyallahu anhu, an al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, qala, الصلح جائز بين المسلمين إلا صلحا حرم حلالا أو أحل حراما والمسلمون على شروطهم إلا شرطا حرم حلالا أو أحل حراما رواه أهل السنن إلا النساء." Read the hadith.
The authority of Amr ibn Auf al-Muzani from the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, who said, "As-sulh, reconciliation is allowed between the Muslims except for agreements which make the lawful unlawful or make the unlawful lawful, and the Muslims are held accountable according to their conditions except for a condition which makes the lawful unlawful or makes the unlawful lawful."
Okay, this hadith points to a important principle, which is reconciliation, right? I.e., there's a dispute and it happens, okay? When we're speaking about mu'amalat, it's dealing with people, and as the nature of people, we're going to differ on things, right? We're going to have disagreements and disputes. How do we resolve those disputes? This is the issue. You're buying and selling something, you buy something, you find that it's faulty, right? There's something wrong with the product that you just purchased. Okay, you go back to the person. How do you resolve this difference? Do you resolve it in court or do you do reconciliation? Here it says, "As-sulhu jaiz." As-sulh is jaiz, it's allowed. Not lazim, it's not obligatory, it's not wajib to do it, but it's jaiz. It's permissible between the two parties, right? Bain al-Muslimin, between the Muslims. What does that mean? That means each party is going to come to an agreement in which they give up, or one party gives up some of their rights or entitlement in that particular situation, right? They give up some of their rights or some of their entitlement in that situation, either both parties or one of them. That's what sulh means. And it's important because in the Quran, as-sulhu khair, sulh is good, right? So it's a good thing to do. It can happen between two people that disagree in terms of money, or to a wife and a husband that has a disagreement amongst themselves. They can come to a conciliation. So conciliation is something which is praiseworthy and something which is good, but it's not something which is wajib. It's important to understand that if a person says, "No, I don't want to make sulh, I'm not happy to make sulh, I want my haqq in the mahkamah, in the court," then they're entitled to do that and to say that. Right? They're entitled to do that and to say that. So they have to want to make sulh. So they have to be persuaded to make sulh if they're not happy to do so. They can't be forced. That's the point. Sulh, reconciliation, is something which is permissible, not something which is obligatory. Lazim, excuse me. It's not binding. You don't have to make sulh. The second thing is, what type of sulh is allowed and what type of sulh isn't permissible. Subhanallah.
Okay, we have to open the
Alhamdulillah, it's raining, thundering in Kuwait. MashaAllah. MashaAllah.
سكره ده محمد مين اللي ده ابراهيم
عبد الرحمن. We've got a flood.